Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Today's story takes us into the world of small business IT contracting, where trust and word of mouth matter until one client decides to test boundaries. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Neighbor is suing my widowed grandmother. My grandmother, Marianne, is 65 and lives in a charming little French townhouse community that was built in 2017. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. She's been there since the very beginning. She's a widow, well-liked, and one of the original residents, basically community royalty. A few years after she moved in, a new family bought the townhouse next door. The husband, Luke, his wife, Claire, and their 6-year-old twin daughters. At first, everything seemed normal. Luke introduced himself often, too often in my opinion, showing up anytime he noticed a car in Marianne's driveway. He always made a point to talk to me, to my girlfriend, to anyone within 10 feet. My girlfriend later admitted that when she visited alone, he flirted aggressively with her and made her feel trapped. I naively chalked it up to a man in the middle of a midlife crisis trying to validate himself. Marianne just thought he was overly friendly. And then came winter. One stormy evening, freezing rain coated everything in a thick sheet of ice. Temperatures fluctuated all night, and by morning the rooftops had started shedding layers of heavy ice and packed snow. Marianne didn't think anything of it until she heard a knock at her door. It was Luke, and he looked like he was delivering a tragic telegram. "Marianne," he said, "your roof is broken, the gutters are broken, snow fell onto my car and destroyed my sunroof, completely shattered." She blinked at him, confused. "My roof is broken? Since when?" "It must have been poorly maintained," he insisted. "You need to call your home insurance immediately. They'll pay for the repairs. This is clearly your fault." He kept repeating variations of the same line, always ending with, "You are responsible." His brand new white RAV4 sat in his driveway, looking like it had survived a hailstorm from hell. The roof was indeed shattered, ice chunks still scattered inside the seats. Marianne, bless her heart, didn't admit anything. She simply said she'd speak with her family first, and thank God she did, because she called me and my girlfriend immediately afterward. She sounded worried, and the man's pushiness had obviously rattled her. I told her not to contact insurance until we verified the facts. Ice sliding off a roof in winter is normal. It doesn't automatically make a homeowner negligent. Still, to ease her mind, we contacted 5 roofing and gutter companies. Every single one inspected the photos and told us the same thing. Her roof is new, intact, and functioning exactly as it should. Snow falls, that's nature. Meanwhile, Luke started texting Marianne photos of his car, dramatic messages about how she had caused significant damage, and reminders to do the right thing. The desperation leaked through every text. That's when the truth came out. Luke didn't have comprehensive auto insurance. Not a broken roof to blame, not negligence, just a man trying to make someone else pay for his bare-bones coverage. Marianne's home insurer told her exactly what we expected. He must contact his own auto insurer. You're not liable for naturally falling snow or ice. Once he heard that, Luke went nuclear. He wrote Marianne a letter so dramatic it could have been read in a courtroom by a villain twirling a mustache. In it, he claimed she was negligent, that she failed to maintain her property, and that if she didn't file a liability claim, he would file a lawsuit. That was the moment I stopped being polite. I contacted a lawyer, a very sharp, very direct one, explained the situation, sent him the photos, roofing reports, and Luke's melodramatic threat letter. The lawyer actually snorted when he read it. "This guy doesn't have a case," he said, "but he absolutely needs to be shut down." He drafted a response that could best be described as a legally sanctioned slap across the face. It explained in extremely clear terms that snow sliding off a new roof is not negligence, that Marianne bears no liability, and that any further harassment will result in immediate counteraction. We had the lawyer send it directly to Luke. Certified mail, signature required. The shift in his behavior was instant. The man who'd been pounding on doors, sending demands, threatening lawsuits, and performing the role of a victim suddenly went silent. He didn't ring Marianne's doorbell again. He stopped waving at us when we visited. He stopped cornering my girlfriend in the driveway with flirty comments. He stopped everything. Apparently, knowing Marianne had legal representation turned his swagger into dust. A week later, Claire approached Marianne while taking out the trash. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge her husband's behavior. She simply said, "We hope to move past this." Marianne, with the kind of grace only a grandmother can wield, replied, "I already have," and walked back inside. Luke now avoids eye contact anytime we're outside. Good. He should. Nothing humbles an entitled neighbor faster than realizing the person he tried to bully into submission has a lawyer who bites harder than winter ice. Claire's response, a vague, "We hope to move past this," shows how little accountability either of them wanted to take. No apology, no acknowledgement, just an attempt to smooth things over without addressing what happened. Marianne's answer was simple and firm. She'd already moved on. It puts the responsibility for their behavior squarely back where it belongs. And our next story. The $8,000 lesson he refused to pay for eventually cost him $15,000. I was starting my side business doing IT work for businesses and had some successful jobs for a few companies. I found word of mouth was the best way to gain new clients because entrepreneurs tend to network with other business owners. Tony was one such client who'd heard I had done some work for a client and called to see if I could help. His company's needs were to stop using a semi-accounting service that they'd been paying a percentage of their profit to process payments, purchase orders, and billing/receivables. He brought in an accountant to work a new product, pretty well known. They wanted a server to be accessible remotely and had already paid their ISP for a static IP for the server, but needed the actual server, redundancy, UPS, and firewall device. I explained that for the product they had, we could probably set up a workstation and not a server, and it would run approximately $3,500 total and would be easy, but no, the owner wanted a full-blown server system with all the bells and whistles. He explained that he would likely be using the server for a CRM and a few other systems later on. Overall, the entire cost for the system would be $8,000, not including a few other services that needed annual billing, VPN, remote service. Equipment cost was $7,500, my labor charge was $500, UPS was $1,500, server was $3,800, and refurbed firewall, Cisco ASA, with programming by a third-party specialist was $1,800, and a spare rack was $400. I got my contract signed, put an order with my distributor, I have Net45 set up with them, and the firewall specialist, and got to work. 1.5 weeks later, when the firewall came in last, I finished the job on a single weekend and got everything up and going after a call to the ISP, whom did not like the firewall appliance I installed. For some reason, they had to tweak things on their end, and finally allowed the traffic to go through once more. I confirmed function with the owner, whom verbally approved and was happy. I sent my invoice promptly on Monday, left it as in they had 1 week to pay. When I saw no reply or payment after 4 days, I messaged Tony and asked if they'd received my invoice. To my surprise, he replied the server was not working and proceeded to call me and tell me that the whole thing was a total waste of money and I should have never done the job. I, of course, apologized and informed him I'd be on the way to fix whatever the problem was. When I got there, Tony refused to let me in, refused to pay for the equipment, and I was pretty upset. 2.5 weeks had passed since I ordered my equipment and my distributor was needing to get paid within 45 days. I was getting very nervous and was thinking of taking it to small claims court until talking with the friend, he informed me I could pull a mechanics lien. I informed him this was for IT and he stated that mechanics lien where I live actually can be pulled on various industries and IT was one of them. So I started the process to fill out and file a mechanics lien on Tony's company. Much to my surprise, there was no court date. All I needed to do was provide considerable proof to clerks and later to the constable. After filling out the mechanics lien and serving him notice, I once again gave him the opportunity to pay the $8,000 owed. By this time, I'd spoken with my distributor and he switched my account from Net45 to Net90. He refused via phone call and got him on text. I took the information I had and went to the local constables, whom after seeing the mechanics lien and proof, set up an appointment to meet me at the place of business to take back my server, UPS, and firewall. I went in on Tuesday, which I'd learned was the day the accountant came in to start the week. Constable and I arrived at 7:30 a.m. right at opening time. At first, they refused entry until Tony came by and was informed I was enforcing my mechanics lien and would be taking back my equipment. He immediately got riled up and claimed I could not take the equipment because a new person had replaced it all. The constable asked if I had serial numbers and models for the equipment, which I did. We go in and find my server, UPS, and firewall all in the exact same way I left it. The server showed it had been online for the entire time, no real changes were noticed, and as far as I could tell, no one had worked on it. Tony began to chuckle when I shut the server down and says, "How are you going to take the system when it's bolted to the ground? Bet you didn't think about that, did you, you idiot?" He didn't realize that rack-mounted equipment is not permanently attached to the mount. I guess he thought he had me beat because it was all one system that you can't take apart and not something that was put together. His jaw dropped the moment I removed the server, loaded it onto the cart after removing a couple of bolts. He started panicking and started telling the constable that he would sue him if he didn't stop me. The constable simply stayed calm and ignored the owner. I guess after a bit, he informed Tony that he needed to get out of his face and step back, but when Tony refused to back down, the constable undid his holster safety harness and put his hand on his firearm. Tony's face was exquisite, full of fear and eventually a dawning sensation that this was going to happen one way or another. At first, I didn't understand why he was so riled up, and now had a panicked face like his world just collapsed until a bit later. I wrapped up my server, UPS firewall, and left the rack. True to Tony's word, undoing the bolts proved difficult to impossible with the tools I had, so I told Tony he could keep IT for the new server he tries to set up. It didn't take more than 2 hours before I got a call from him stating that he had talked to his attorney and he would be suing me for damages and I would be going to jail for trespassing. I informed him he did not pay for the equipment. His equipment was repoed, thus there was nothing to sue for. As far as trespassing, I was servicing a mechanic's lien with a law enforcement officer, thus it's not trespassing. He then starts hemming and hawing about how he needs to bill clients because he hasn't had revenue in a week, but his accountant can't do anything because she has no access to the accounting software and they have no copies. I informed him it was not my problem. I would not be giving access to the server nor data contained, and he should have paid for the equipment instead of trying to screw me over $8,000. He then offered to pay me if I could install the server back the same day, but that only if I did it that same day, otherwise he'd find someone else. I informed him that our original contract was null and void. I would be returning the equipment to my distributor, but first I had to wipe the storage by DoD standards, which means 0% chance of recovering files unless he somehow has NSA-level funds. He starts freaking out and resorts back to what he usually did, threatens me with a lawsuit to make my life a living hell, etc. So I hang up and text him I'm going to proceed to delete his data that evening and that I was no longer interested in working with him. More advice and the real revenge. He called me at least 50 times. I just silenced my phone and had a talk with my friend later that night, the friend whom had given me the advice. He then tells me why I was returning everything if I had the only copy that has everything from client names, contacts, phone numbers, billing, receivables, etc. He asked me how much revenue did the company generate. I informed him I was taking a wild guess, but it was somewhere in the ballpark of $58,678.21 for the last month. He laughs and tells me, why don't you charge them double the price to get his equipment back and have him pay you cash before you start? He was right. I was taking my petty revenge and walking out with an $1,800 in a firewall. I had to pay in advance and a $500 unpaid labor charge. Why not take it a step further, get sweeter revenge, and get paid a fat stack of money? The following day, I messaged Tony. I apologized for the way I behaved yesterday. It was not professional. Unfortunately, your crap attitude and attempts to screw me over got the better of me. The server has not been wiped yet. I would like to reconsider a new arrangement so we can salvage this sour experience and turn it into sweet honey. Are you interested in working with me to get your equipment back? I must warn you, it'll be extra since I would be doing double the work. Let me know. Tony immediately called me, and immediately his ways came up. I knew you would change your mind and come crawling back. Yes, I want everything back, but I'm only paying $8,050, not a dime more. The $50 is me being generous to give you a second chance to do things right. I immediately informed him that I still have all the equipment and in fact would only take maybe 20 minutes to complete the job. However, I had a different idea in terms of the price. The new price was $15,000 to be paid cash. He immediately starts yelling and hollering. I keep talking and informing he has 2 weeks to decide if being able to get paid by his clients was worth it, If not, the equipment was going back, and that would be that. No hard feelings. I hang up. About 2 days later, I get a call from Tony informing me he'd agreed to a new arrangement to please set it up and install it ASAP. I tell him I can go Friday, but I would need to be paid $15,000 cash before I even unload a single bolt from my vehicle. He agreed. I could hear a lady talking, telling me needs to get this resolved because they'd not had revenue in nearly 2 weeks. This was on Wednesday. On Thursday, I get a call from his daughter, whom is apparently the accountant, and the lady whom was telling him to resolve it. She's cutting a check and needs to know my name. I inform her I would not be accepting checks. I had told Tony specifically it would be in cash. She says okay and tells me if the amount of $12,000 was correct. I once again correct her and inform her the correct amount was $15,000 cash. She said in satire, of course it's $15,000. I will go make the withdrawal and have the money ready tomorrow. Sure enough, Friday morning, true to her word, she and Tony were there with $15,000 cash. I counted it in front of her and Tony. She makes a comment saying that I was a lifesaver because they could not go back to the service they used before to get paid, and they urgently needed to get some POs sent out. I placed it in my vehicle, locked the glove box, and unloaded the equipment. True to my word, it took me 20 minutes to place the server, firewall, and UPS inside the rack mount, connect the cables, power on the server, and ask them to test it out when they get a chance. If anything was wrong, to not contact me, and to have a good day. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.